It's very good to see so many familiar faces here. And welcome to our first public educational session, Becoming a Trauma-Informed Community. Tonight's event is simply informational in nature. My name is Larry Henley, and standing beside me is John Stoops. While John is president of Redbird Resilient, he let me go first as I'm in charge of adult education. I'm happy to report that I'm not the educator. We have professionals for that, and they provided tonight's topics and content. I am vice president of Redbird Resilient, and John and I are both members. I'm getting a little bit of kickback here. John and I are both members of Redbird Resilient. I'm sorry, John and I are both members of the Rotary Club of Loudonville, and along with Pastor Steve Sullivan, helped start Redbird Resilient. We joined Superintendent Catherine Booster starting around April and holding monthly community meetings. Thank you for all that have attended and helped build our direction for Redbird Resilient. Scott Kaufman, Catherine, Pastor Steve round out our current board members. We are currently reviewing adding 2 more board members from the professional sector, one from mental health and one from addiction recovery. To set tonight's tone, I offer the Serenity Prayer. We've all probably heard, but all need reminding. God grant me the serenity to accept the things that we cannot change. I did write this down. I have to recite this. God grant me the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I'm glad you all knew that, okay? Steve and Jerry, would you raise your hands, please? Here's Jerry. They don't know I'm going to ask them this question, okay? So, are you guys nervous?
I'm scared to death.
Scared to death? All right. Do you expect the people in attendance to make the same decisions in their lives that you do?
I would hope so.
All right, Jerry? Okay, all right. I'm going to go with Jerry. I'm looking for no.
Yeah, he had the right answer.
He had the right answer. All right. I guess those specific decisions, per se, as far as how we make decisions, I like that for yes, but as far as what they are specifically, I think each person needs to make those decisions for themselves. So with that, I'm glad that Jerry answered the right way. No, because it'd be very difficult to get substitute speakers in 10 minutes. Really ruined my joke. Redbird's mission is building community resilience to strengthen emotional health and reduce addiction. To what end? Well, that ties into the first line of our vision statement, which is that community members be the best they can be in living healthy, whole, and productive lives. In this, there is room for each person. In this, there is room for God. We all walk in an environment of boundaries. Lastly, who should attend these adult education sessions? Because we are going to have them every other month, starting this month. We're going to have one in January, March, and April. I didn't say that. January, March, and May. So, but I believe everyone should attend. If there is a best grade for resiliency, then no one is always a 10. I would like to see the 8s become 9s, 5s become 7s, and 2s become 5s. When we model resiliency, that is the best way to influence others, and we are all in this together. And with that, I hand this over to John.
Thank you, Larry. Larry gave me a page of things he wanted me to say, and laced throughout there was the word Greekly about half a dozen times. Then at the end he says, and you have 60 seconds, so probably won't happen. I can take 60 seconds worth of material and stretch it out to 60 minutes, actually. Redbird Resilient just kind of gradually evolved. and there was a group of us, kept adding more people because people saw what our objective was, trying to make this community more robust, more resilient. And we became a coalition of Rotary members, Lions members, the school administration and teachers, churches. We have a number of ministers who are involved in it. Business owners. Probably our weakest area right now is business owners. We got a couple that are part of Redbird Resilient, but think of all the businesses we have and the role that they can play in getting a visual awareness of the problems that the community has and support for the things that's going to make it better. I can say I've been a resident of Loudonville for 10 years now. I love this community. I want to do whatever I can to be able to make this community, you people, the best that we can be. And that's not the exact wording when you read our vision, but it's close. Our biggest challenge, the thing that we think and talk about a lot, is how do we reach people? I don't have an exact number, but we got quite a good attendance here. It might be, I don't know, maybe close to 100. The thing is, there's 1,000 other people out there that we would like to be able to get this information to. So as you sit through this, you're going to pick up a lot of facts. And I'll ask you, whenever you leave here the next several days, as you run into people, your friends, your family who weren't here, talk to them about what went on. Share with them the information that we're going to share with you. Try to get this thing more expanded throughout the whole community. It's the whole thing about driving passion and commitment, is the knowledge and the awareness. So with that, my job is to introduce Steve Stone, which I think means you got to come up here.
Myself and my colleague Jerry Strasbaugh are fellow Rotarians, along with John and Larry, and I think there's many others from the Rotary Club in Loudonville. So I thought, Larry, you were setting me up for the four-way test. Because in Rotary, we have a four-way test that we use to guide all of our decision-making. And the test is simply, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? So I think if I can just kind of push back a little bit, those are the principles that I hope all of us can use in guiding our decisions. And I know those are the principles that guided you and John and this community in this fantastic effort that's underway here in Loudonville. So I am Steve Stone. I'm the Director of the Mental Health and Recovery Board in Ashland County. We are a part of local county government, and we are responsible for all of the public dollars that are available to our community for mental health services and addiction services. And we don't provide those services directly. We do that through contracts with three agencies. Jerry is the director of Appleseed Community Mental Health Center, which is one of our agencies. Cheryl Villegas is here from Catholic Charities, is our second agency. And then Emma Colbus is here somewhere in the back. Emma is a new director of ACADA, the Alcohol and Drug Agency that serves our county. So we are here collectively and together. They have brought some of their staff with them. I'm privileged to have two of my board members, Sarah Battison and Rebecca Owens. I hope I didn't miss any other board members along the way, but I want you to know that what's going on here in Loudonville is something that we wholeheartedly and eagerly support. This is some really wonderful work that you all are doing. Some of you have heard of the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, but perhaps many of you have not. And it's sometimes referred to as the most important study that you've never heard of. It was actually published about 20 years ago. So we at the Mental Health Board have felt that wanting to build a trauma-informed Ashland County, one of the ways to do that was to begin increasing what we might call our ACEs literacy, or our understanding of the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study. And to do that, we created, one of the ways that we're going to do that is we've created a video that was produced that showcases several local community leaders from a variety of disciplines, from business, from education, from mental health and addictions, from law enforcement. As a matter of fact, Lieutenant Scott Smart is here, and you'll see him in the video. And if I remember, I'll make a few more comments about trauma-informed policing, which is something that is a bit foreign to many people. But anyway, this video is intended to be used widely and broadly throughout the county. It's locally produced by people in our county and our fellow citizens. And we'll take a few minutes to watch this video, and then I'll have a few comments for you afterwards before turning the podium over to the other speakers this evening. So with that, I hope the video gives you a sense of what the ACE study is about, and we're going to have a presentation a little bit. It's going to unpack that a little bit more, but also the broad application of the study to virtual. I mean, it came out of the healthcare system originally, but you can see how broad the application is to business, law enforcement, education, and so on. Larry started us off with reciting the Serenity Prayer, and when I think about the Serenity Prayer in light of the ACEs study, trauma and resiliency and recovery, you know, the things that I think are the things that we cannot change are we can't change other people, and we can't change our past. But what we can change is ourselves and our futures. And so this idea of building a trauma-informed community is both to encourage adults to find ways, some insight, some learning about themselves, so that they can mitigate the impact of any adverse experiences that they may have had, but also then to do everything we can to protect children and help them to be raised in loving environments where they are safe and stable and nurturing environments for children. One of the principal researchers of the ACEs study, Dr. Robert Andrew, who worked for the Center of Disease Control, says, you know, ACEs are predictable. We know, for example, from the study that at least 2/3 of adults, which is 2/3 of the people in this room, have experienced one or more categories of those adverse childhood experiences. But what is predictable, because we know now what the trajectory can be of this, and what is predictable then is preventable. So we can, as a community, work to prevent adverse experiences from occurring, mitigate the effects of those when they happen, and really work together to build a community where people can develop, can be fostered, and can realize their greatest potential. So with that, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Catherine Pooster, is right here, and your superintendent is one of the champions of this initiative, and so it's my pleasure to step out of the way and let her come and make her comments to you.
Thanks, good evening. I'm not usually one to stand behind the podium, so I'm just going to kind of give you a little warning about that. I'm Catherine Pooster, I'm the superintendent of schools here at Loudonville, Perrysville, and I just want to kind of reiterate some of the things that we've heard already this evening. I'm a firm believer in strong schools make strong communities, but strong communities make strong schools. You can't have one without the other. And your attendance here tonight is overwhelming, that it solidifies the fact that as community members, you're in it with us, and we are all here to make a better Loudonville-Perrysville. And that does us educators. It makes us feel really good. I see a lot of my staff and my colleagues in the audience, and I hope I know they realize and understand and appreciate you all being here this evening. Just a few things that we're doing in the school district, some initiatives that we're doing. Through some community dialogue events that the district has had, we have made mental health one of our priorities. We found out through survey and through discussion that mental health is a big topic, it's a big concern, and so one of the things that we did was we increased our liaison hours at the school district. Just a show of hands, does everybody know what a liaison is? Have any idea? Okay, I see some people that didn't raise their hands, so I'm gonna go ahead and tell you what that is. Appleseed Counseling Center, through the mental health levy, provides our school district with a liaison. And these individuals act as an intermediary between school and home. They connect families with services, they connect students with supplies. They see a need and they fill it. They're just they're little angels that come into the district and really help our students and our families, and so we appreciate that. The mental health levy provides a certain amount of hours for our school district, and we increased that this year, and so we're so grateful for that, and we're so thankful for Appleseed to be in our district. So thanks, Beth and Jen and Amy, for being here. Appreciate it. A couple of other things that we're doing in the district through the ACADA agency. We have Too Good for Drugs in grades K through 6, and I think there's going to be some panel discussion, question and answer, that maybe Wendy can answer questions about that too, because she's awesome. We've had really good feedback with Wendy in our classrooms this year, and we increased the amount from last year to this year, so we're really happy about that. Another program that we're doing right now is called Drug-Free Clubs of America. About a year ago, Crystal Ashby started a conversation and said, hey, I think we need to explore this drug-free clubs. The Career Center's doing it, maybe we need to explore it. So we did, we had a meeting, and Beth Ring was so gracious, she decided to take that charge and lead the way with drug-free clubs. And I believe drug-free clubs, if you don't know what that is, it is a voluntary drug testing program in our school district. Students sign up in grades 7 through 12 to voluntarily be drug tested. And it really is about celebrating not using drugs. There's rewards and incentives that go along with this, and I think, and Beth, is it about 100? We had about 100 tested just last week. Yes, just last week 100 kids tested, so that's pretty good. We were really impressed with it. We had 100 kids tested, so that's a really good program that we have. One of the things that I just kind of want to share with you, we're in this, we sit here in our tonight in our lives and in our homes, and we think about, we'll go home tonight and we'll think about all the things that we heard. We heard about the ACEs study, we heard a lot about resiliency, and we start to think about what can I do, how can I help, what does it mean to me? We kind of think about what does that mean to me, and I've seen the video before, but I take on a whole different attitude sometimes when I listen to it, because I think about, well, what does that mean to me? And every one of us can think of somebody a child or a family member who's been through divorce, or who has suffered, a family member who's been through cancer or death, or an addiction of some sort. Those sorts of things are hitting closer and closer to home for so many people, us adults. The hard part is it happens to our kids every single day. And that's what, somebody asked me, why do I do this? Why am I committed? Why do I spend my Tuesday nights with these fine young men? And it's because there isn't an educator that doesn't take every student home with them every night. And as superintendent, I now take every 1,019 home with me every night. And I hear about our kids the need that they have and the struggles that they have and what they go home to. And school is oftentimes their safe haven. And we work diligently every day to provide a safe place for them. Of course, the state says, but we have to teach them math, reading, science. Oh, and now I'm off. We're supposed to teach all of these things to them, but the hard part is if they come to school with all this baggage they come to school with, and we're supposed to teach them math. That's what gets really hard because, of course, we're human, and we all know that Johnny's not going to learn math because he's hungry, or because mom or dad got taken away last night, or because he doesn't have clean clothes, or the list goes on. And I really think through the community coming together like this, it really shows the dedication and the commitment to the community raises children. We are doing this together. It does take a village, and it takes Loudonville, and it takes Perrysville. It takes the villages to raise our kids. And with that, I think I'm done, and I now get to introduce the star of the show, Jerry Strasbaugh.
Well, it's great to see everybody, and I'm very kind of humbled to be asked to be a speaker this evening. I live in Ashland and work at Appleton Community Mental Health Center. I've worked there for, it's hard to believe, almost 20 years, but also we get a chance to work with folks in Loudonville quite a bit. And I've been blessed to be able to get to know a lot of folks here and actually do some work down here myself with some of the preschools and things like that, so it's been a blessing. But tonight I really want to bring to you some information. We're going to walk through, just take our time and walk through what adverse childhood experiences are and how they impact us as adults and what they mean to our kids and how they impact us as adults. I want to talk a little bit about how common they are, because one of the things I really hope we can come away with an understanding of is that bad things happen to everybody. It's not that there's just this few people over here in the corner and they're the ones that have had some really bad things happen. Really, most of us have had one or more bad things happen to us. And what does that mean? How does that impact us? I think it's important for us to understand. I want to take some time as we walk through the slides and just take a look maybe a little more specifically about how it affects our mind, our body. And then lastly, what I want to spend most of my time on, hopefully, is what we can do to help ourselves going forward. Because as Dr. Carter shared in the video that we watched, and Steve shared, and Catherine shared, there's a lot of things that we can do. We may have had bad things happen. We may feel like our life isn't going so well right now, but there are things we can do to help ourselves do better. We can overcome the things that happen to us. We can learn from them, and we can move forward. And so we want to focus on that tonight too. So hopefully when you leave tonight, you'll have an idea of what those traumas could be for folks, how they affect us, and then what we can do individually, and then offer help to others so that we can move forward in life. So what I'm going to do right now is we're going to watch a very short 5-minute video that's going to explain kind of broadly what the ACE study is, what an adverse childhood event is, and then while that's going on, maybe a couple people can help me. We'll hand out these couple things, and then we'll talk some more about it, and we'll actually, as a group, sort of figure out not as a group, but each person here in the group will get a chance to kind of get a sense of what their own ACE score is, and we'll talk some more after that. So. I think you did a really nice job, I think, just giving us an overview of what we mean when we say adverse child experiences. As you can, as you've seen, there are things that are common to many of us. And so this slide is kind of a nice graphic to just help us remember what we're talking about. Because in a second, we're going to actually, each of us are going to just kind of walk through the adverse child event study, experience study, just a questionnaire, just to get a sense of where we might be. Because again, if it's true that 63 to 66% of the general population have had at least one adverse child experience, that means how many people in this room? Most of the people in this room. So we're just going to take a look at that, and that's just for you to have for yourself, but also to maybe help you understand a little bit about yourself and also to help others. So we're going to be talking about things in these categories. Adverse child experiences are things like physical abuse. So anybody who lived in a home where they were harmed, hurt, beat up, banged up as a child, where they were emotionally abused, put down, verbally, called names, those kinds of things, or where someone was sexually abused, touched inappropriately by an adult. Neglect, where a home or childhood where you didn't get what you needed, and you just didn't get taken care of, or you were emotionally neglected, you were ignored, or weren't taken care of, and didn't get what you needed emotionally. And then the final category, household dysfunction. So these are things like, did you grow up in a home where a parent had a diagnosed mental illness, someone who really struggled with an emotional or mental problem and didn't get the help they needed, so it really affected their parenting. Or did you experience a home where your mom was treated violently? There was domestic violence in the home. There was abuse and violence towards your mom. Divorce, growing up in a home where you were separated from one of your parents. Having a family member who's in jail or prison, and then a family member who is alcoholic or abuses drugs, is addicted to drugs or alcohol. So those are the categories, and those are the kinds of things that we're talking about. They're not uncommon. Now, if you think about the prevalence of these things, amazingly, if we were to take a poll of this group, and just remember this, the ACE study was done 20 years ago, but it's been replicated a number of times, and the stats fall pretty close every time. So, about a third of this room would say, never had any of this happen to me. But the rest of the room is going to say, maybe 25% of us are going to say, I've had one. Okay, one of those things happened to me. 16% of us in this room are going to say, two of those things happened. 9% of the folks here would say, I had 3 things. And 12, almost 13% would say, I've had a lot more than that. I've had 5 or so. Everybody, most people, and that's important for us to remember, that it's not just a small group, a small subset. So on the next slide, or maybe the next, skip to the next one, that'd be great, sorry. So now what I want you to do is, with the handout, you should all have a handout that says, Taking the ACE Survey. I want you to just walk through this with us, and what I want you to do is just answer it in your own mind, or you can jot it down with your pen, yes or no to these questions. And then at the end, I want you to just, okay, what's my ACE score? If you don't feel comfortable writing it down, if you're, a public meeting, you just want to keep track in your head, that's fine too. So question number 1, did a parent or other adult in the household often or very often swear at you, insult you, put you down, or humiliate you, or act in a way that made you feel afraid that you might be physically hurt? Would you say yes to that or no to that for your own childhood. Second question. Did a parent or other adult in the household often or very often push, grab, slap, throw something at you, or ever hit you so hard that you had marks or were injured? So either, you can jot that down or think about that, yes or no. Did an adult or person at least 5 years old, 5 years older than you, ever touch or fondle you, or have you touch their body in a sexual way, or attempt or actually have oral, anal, or vaginal intercourse with you? Yes or no? Think about that question. Did you often or very often feel that no one in your family loved you or thought you were important or special? Or your family didn't look out for each other, feel close to each other, or support each other? Would that be true for you? Did you often or very often feel that you didn't have enough to eat, had to wear dirty clothes, had no one to protect you, or your parents were too drunk or high to take care of you, or take you to the doctor if you needed it? Yes or no? Next question. Were your parents ever divorced or separated? Yes or no? Was your mother or stepmother often or very often pushed, grabbed, slapped, or had something thrown at her? Or sometimes, often, or very often kicked, bitten, hit with a fist, or hit with something hard? Or ever repeatedly hit over at least a few times or threatened with a gun or knife? Next question. Did you live with anyone who was a problem drinker or alcoholic or who used street drugs? Was a household member depressed or mentally ill, or did a household member ever attempt suicide? And lastly, did a household member ever go to prison? So I know some of those questions, as I read through those, probably were difficult for some folks in the room. They're very graphic questions. But if you experience those things, this isn't news to you. So think about where your score is now. Think about how many of those things did you say yes to? Did you say yes to one, to none, or several? And think about the fact that most likely, at least 2/3 of the room said yes to some of those. Now, why is this important? Why are we here sharing this survey? Why is this information important? So next slide. This is a graphic that just helps us understand in kind of a simple way that adverse childhood experiences, based on information from the Adverse Childhood Experience Study, mean that we are more likely, if we've had those kinds of things happen to us, to experience difficulties in other areas of our life. We're more likely to experience social, emotional, or cognitive impairment. We don't maybe work as well in relationships as other people do. We struggle emotionally. We're more likely to be depressed or anxious or afraid. Or we don't think as clearly. Maybe we have more trouble concentrating or problem solving because of those adverse childhood experiences. Because of those adverse childhood experiences, even if we just had one, our risk of having at-risk behaviors goes up. We're more likely to drink, to smoke, to be promiscuous, to adopt behaviors that are dangerous or that could shorten our lifespan. We're more likely then, because of those things, to have some kind of illness, chronic disease, or disability, and to wind up passing away earlier than folks who may not have had some of those adverse childhood experiences. So there is a very direct correlation to what happens to us in childhood and what carries on through the rest of our life. Now that may seem odd. We may think, well, those things happened a long time ago. Why does that matter? There is definitely a cumulative effect on our bodies and our brains and our relationships when we have things like that happen. And so I want to take some time and just walk through a little bit of that and sort of ask why. What happens? Why does adverse childhood experiences relate to some of these things that happen to me as I get older? So, the things that happen to us when we're younger are experienced deep inside. There's a lot of neurological responses to things that happen when we are threatened, when we're neglected, when we're abused, when we have things happen to us that make us afraid that we might not live, where our body's being harmed. And though we go on through adulthood and we try to forget those things, our bodies and our minds, way back inside, don't forget those things. A great quote from another part of the film that we just watched: the child may not remember what happens to them, but their body remembers what happens to them. A quote by Alice Miller, part of a training that I went to. The truth about childhood is stored up in our bodies and lives, in the depths of our souls. Our intellect can be deceived, our feelings can be numbed and manipulated, our perceptions shamed and confused, our bodies tricked with medication, but our soul never forgets. And because we are one whole soul and one body, someday our body will present the bill. So what happens to us when we're young, if we experience those adverse childhood experiences, any one of them, actually the research shows, and the original researchers, I think, wanted to find out, are any of them worse than any of the others? And really, not so. They all seem to have about the same impact on future life, whether it was neglect or abuse or any of those kinds of things that were up there that we mentioned. But interestingly, they have a very profound neurological impact on our body. Almost every brain imaging study shows that there is an impact on the brain from trauma, traumatized victims. Shows some abnormal activity in the brain, and that it's in the area where our brain and our body connect. Abnormal activity where our brain and our body connects when we've experienced trauma. So that, and I like to think of it this way, it's kind of a simple way to think about it. Our most basic instinct, if you're a human, your most basic instinct is survival. Fight to survive. So if you're young, when you're young, growing up, and anything threatens your life or makes you afraid that you're not going to make it, afraid that you're going to be hurt, your survival instincts switch, so to speak, is flipped on. And it doesn't ever really get flipped back off. So that as we go forward in life, as things remind us, something we smell, something we hear, something we feel, something we taste, something reminds us of that past event because it's been so deeply embedded in us neurologically. It's like we're having that all over again. So this neurological impact of childhood is pretty profound. In fact, if you grow up in a home that's pretty safe and secure, in fact, a very well-known psychologist, John Bowlby, says that for kids to grow up and adapt to life pretty well, they have to come from a secure base, meaning a home where things are pretty safe, pretty secure, they get their needs met. If that happens, then their brain, their bodies, develop naturally, develop normally, and they're able to feel safe, feel secure, feel like, life is okay. But if you're growing up in a home where you constantly feel threatened or scared or neglected or traumatized, you kind of get hardwired to these feelings of fear and abandonment, and you're sort of expecting those kinds of things to be around the corner all the time. You sort of live with a level of anxiety. Now, generally, our brain is able to, correct itself, handle stress, handle fears, handle things. But whenever a fear, a deep-seated fear comes along, it sort of overrides our operating system. That's sort of what happens from childhood. You grow up in a home where there's a lot of adverse childhood events, or you have an adverse childhood event that makes you feel, scared, abandoned, neglected. It sort of overrides your normal operating function, and you see these outcomes as you get older. It leaves you sort of with a lack of an internal sense of security and safety. So think about just what it takes to feel safe and secure. You come in here, you sit down, you're with your friends, you're able to eat some popcorn. But just think if you sat down in here and you just had this sort of ongoing sense of anxiety or fear, people were judging you, or that's kind of what happens when you have a higher ACE score. Make sure I'm not getting ahead of myself. So, adverse childhood experiences have a huge impact on our brain, our body, our neurology. As we go forward in life, we're more likely to have problems in relationships, problems keeping a job, problems staying well, more likely to be addicted. A lot of things can happen. But what's important for us to remember, what I think is the most important takeaway from our evening, is that there are things that we can do to reverse that, so that those traumatic events, those adverse childhood experiences don't continue to cause us to make choices that aren't good for us, that ruin our relationships, or keep us addicted, or cause us to have trouble with jobs, or trouble with managing our money, or anything like that. So here's what I want us to think about, and that is this scale up here. Okay, I want you all to think about the scale. Now, on one side of the scale is all the bad things that have happened to us, all the stressors in our life, all the struggles in our life. If our parents got divorced, if I was abused as a child, if I was poor as a child, if I didn't have enough to eat as a child. All those stressors are going to be on one side of that scale, and they're going to weigh us down. They're going to keep us from functioning well as we go through life. But the good news is, it's a scale. And every day, we wake up, we have an opportunity to do something different. So what we want to do is start to fill up the other side of our scale. Because if we can balance the side of our scale that has stressful things, difficult things, troubled things on it, if we can balance that with coping skills, with things that push back, that help us manage our stress, manage our fear, manage our anxiety, and help us rethink and reevaluate what happened to us, we'll be able to manage, do better, overcome, and not have as many of those negative impacts on our life. So the goal isn't, okay, I've got to forget my childhood, that stuff happened, and I've got to somehow get rid of it. No, the goal is to gain coping skills to help us manage and think differently about ourselves and about what happened, and then manage the ongoing stressors in our life. So we're going to use the word resilience a lot, so let me define this. Research has shown that resilience is an ordinary concept. In other words, to overcome our struggles, it doesn't take superhuman power, it doesn't take superhuman strength, it doesn't take a medical degree, it's an ordinary. It's ordinary, not extraordinary. Being resilient doesn't mean that, it's easy to overcome your struggles, because it probably won't be easy. Life isn't easy. Life is difficult. Life is full of problems. I've never met anybody when I'm working with someone doing counseling, somebody might say they're depressed or discouraged. I would say, well, you know what? I've never met anybody who's depressed who didn't have a lot of good reasons to be. Life can be very depressing. So overcoming things isn't going to be easy necessarily, but it's very doable for all of us. And you know what? It's not something that you have or you don't have. It's not a trait that you're born with. Resilience is a skill that you can learn. We all can learn to do things to help us and to help others move forward and overcome any difficult thing that's ever happened to us. So resilience. Resilience is a combination of factors. So we're going to talk a little bit about what is resiliency. First of all, it's a combination of factors, and the most important of those, like Freddie wrote this out in the video that we saw first, is caring relationships. So as we talk about resilience, as we talk about helping people overcome an adverse childhood experience that they had, who support you, it's people who encourage you, it's people who you can be real with and be authentic with. Resiliency also is the capacity to make realistic plans and carry out your plans. It's having a positive view of yourself and being confident in your strengths and abilities. It's being able to communicate and problem solve. It's being able to manage strong feelings. And all of those things, you may be sitting there saying, well, I don't have that ability. I don't have any caring relationships in my life. I'm not really that good at problem solving or planning. I don't really feel that good about myself. And I don't really manage my emotions very well. Well, that may be true. That may be up till now you've not done those things well. But you can. We're all lovable, forgivable, and changeable. So you can absolutely start to take steps to reverse anything that's happened to you in the past. So I'm going to just cover 4 essential truths about trauma and recovery. Our capacity to destroy one another is matched by our capacity to heal one another. Restoring relationships and community is central to restoring well-being. When John Stoops was up here talking about Redbird Resilient and his vision for the community of Loudonville and the Loudonville Rotary Club and what they hope for this community, they want to restore relationships in Loudonville. I've had a chance to hear some of the folks from the Loudonville City Schools say that I think is it 20%, 18% of the kids are being raised by a grandparent. There's a lot of broken relationships in Loudonville. But there's the power in a community and people sitting in this room to restore those broken relationships. Language gives us the power to change ourselves and others by communicating our experiences, helping us define what we know, and finding a common sense of meaning. So the language that we start to use with one another and the language that we begin to use on ourselves begins that process of healing. Do I see myself as, weak and inferior, or do I see myself as courageous and able to do what I need to do? All that it's how do I talk to myself? How do others talk to me? I remember several years ago when I did counseling with children quite a bit. I I remember having this young person in my office, and it was, I think they were about 10 years old. And her ACE score was probably 5, let's say. It could have been higher than that. I'd have to sit here and count them off, but it was very high. And I remember thinking, wow. So I just looked at them and said, you know what? You have to be one of the most courageous people I've ever met in my life. And this 10-year-old little kid just kind of sat up a little higher in their seat, because I don't think they'd ever seen themselves as courageous. They'd seen themselves as some pretty obscene names they'd been called, or they'd seen themselves as, being just somebody's object to get their needs met with. But they'd never really thought of themselves as courageous or smart or pretty, or any those kinds of things that kids need to hear about themselves. They hadn't heard that. We have the ability to regulate our own physiology, including some of the so-called involuntary functions of the body and brain, through such basic activities as breathing, moving, and touching. One of the things we're going to do in a little bit is think about what can we do for ourselves to help our journey of recovery happen. Just like those neurological, body-centered, sort of involuntary things that happen to us because we were hurt. So we react in fear or with a fight or flight response when something makes us remember a trauma. We can learn and practice things that help us not be afraid, not have those reactions. We can help ourselves sort of move out of our primitive brain, if you want to use that term, into more of our executive functioning brain. We can train ourselves to do that. It takes a little bit of work, but if we learn to practice meditation, or we learn to practice yoga, or we learn mindfulness or prayer, or how to use some of the more, mystical sort of ancient practices that people used to use all the time, we can help our body kind of bring it back into balance. We can change our social conditions to create environments where children and adults can feel safe and where they can thrive. We can make choices to make our own situation better. Maybe we'll need help. Maybe we'll need to talk to somebody. Maybe we'll need to get somebody involved, law enforcement or some other folks involved. But we can make choices to help ourselves and make things better. As long as you keep secrets and suppress information, you are fundamentally at war with yourself. Hiding your core feelings takes an enormous amount of energy. It saps your motivation to pursue worthwhile goals, and it leaves you feeling bored and shut down. Meanwhile, stress hormones keep flooding your body, leading to headaches, muscle aches, problems with your bowels or sexual functions, and irrational behaviors that may embarrass you and hurt the people around you. Only after you identify the source of these responses can you start using your feelings as signals of problems that require your urgent attention. So you start to see problems as signals. Okay, there's something going on, as opposed to, oh man, I've got a headache or a backache, I need to take more Tylenol or something like that. But with this slide, you can hopefully can get another reminder of the mind-body connection. Why do so many people who have a lot of trauma in their history have frequent headaches, backaches, struggle with their health? It's the stress. It's the stress hormones that course through your body. It's the fight or flight response that's always happening. But as you slowly start to let your story be known, as you slowly start to move towards helping yourself, recovery, resilience, acknowledging what happened, having a safe place where you can share, then you can begin to build slowly or maybe rapidly, depending on where you are in your journey, a recovery process. The full story can be told only after those structures are repaired and after the groundwork has been laid, after a nobody becomes a somebody. So one of the things we're going to do is take a look at a video. It's 2 minutes, I think. It's from a video put out by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration, a federal government entity. And then we're going to just take a walk through some of the things that we can do now, pivot a little bit towards what can we do as individuals. We've taken a look at our history. We know our ACE score. We have a little bit of an understanding, though I realize I went through stuff pretty quickly, that there's a real connection between what happened to us in childhood, how our body absorbed that, and how we continue to re-experience it as adults. So what we want to do is not leave ourselves there. We don't need to leave ourselves there. We want to start to turn the corner and do a full, if we can, 180 to build in things into our life that are going to help us turn that survival instinct switch down a little bit and gain the capacity to trust again and make healthier choices again. So let's watch this short video. The reason I like this model from SAMHSA is because if you recall back on the short video that described the adverse childhood experience study and then the correlation of that study to life, there were impacts on all 8 of these areas. Emotional impacts, people tend to be more depressed, more anxious, if they have one or more of a score, if they have a score of 1 or more on the ACE study, on the ACE survey. Spiritually impacted, you tend to have a real skeptical, fearful view towards spirituality. Maybe not do as well in school, it affects you intellectually. Vocationally, more difficulty keeping a job, less strong financially, more financial difficulties. And just social, relational issues. All of those areas are impacted by the any kind of an adverse childhood experience score. So I like this model, and you have in your hands, I believe, this model up here. I don't have to hold the paper up because you can see it from here. So what I want us to think about for tonight, for everyone in the room, or just a little exercise to help us walk away from tonight with some hope and encouragement. So you may have did this survey tonight and your score was a 0. That's great. Your job is to help other folks. Okay. If you feel like I'm doing great, nothing bad happened to me, either nothing bad happened to you and you're doing great, or you're not telling yourself the truth. I don't know. That's up to you to decide. It could be one or the other. Okay, your job is to help everybody else. Okay, but if you're in the 66% or 63% of us that have an ACE score of 1 or more, then I want us to walk out of here tonight with a plan. Okay, that's my goal, to walk out of here with a plan. Now remember, resilience is ordinary. It's not extraordinary. We're not talking about things that some of us can do and some of us can't do. We can all leave here with a plan. So we'll just walk through these slides really quickly, and then we're going to take some time for questions and comments. So next slide for me. So here's how simple it is. You look at your handout. Look at your model there from SAMHSA. Look at the emotional circle at the top. What's one thing you can start doing for yourself emotionally after tonight? That can be journaling, that can be reading poetry, that can be painting, writing, something you're going to do for yourself to express your emotions. Okay, something you can do for yourself to express your emotions. Physical, what are you going to do for yourself physically? If you haven't seen your family physician in a while, go get a physical. Get enough sleep. I'm reading this really good book right now, and the author says that if you really want to do well and be full of joy, get enough sleep and play. So watch your diet. You can pick some things off here. Pick one and start tomorrow. Next list. Spiritual, sometimes, people have different thoughts about what that may mean. To me, it's, I guess it's getting in touch with something greater than yourself, a power greater than yourself. And there's a lot of ways to do that. Pick something that you want to check off in that circle and say, I'm going to do that starting tomorrow. One thing. Intellectual. Read a book. Watch a TED Talk. This is not hard. Get on YouTube. Google TED Talk. Find one you want to listen to. It's not hard. Take a class. If you're over, 60 or something, I think you can audit a class at AU for free. I mean, this is not hard. Next. Environmental. My office can be really messy. And I feel more stressed out when it's messy. But if I got a couple plants in there now, it's kind of brought my stress down. But find some pictures or plants or paint your bedroom or something. Just make your environment nicer. Pick one thing you're going to do. Next. Financial. Now that's a very personal thing. I realize nobody likes to talk about their finances. But if your finances aren't where you want them to be, again, you can for free download a little app called Mint, and it'll do a budget for you. I think it's free on Play Store. Go to the library, get a book by Susie Orman. She gives great advice. Or get a video, or I think she's on cable TV at night or something, It's not hard to do this. Next. Occupational. Maybe you have a great job and you love it. Keep doing it. That's a blessing. If you're not where you want to be vocationally, this is a great time for you because there's more jobs than there are workers. So learn a new skill. Take a class at the Career Center. They have great adult education classes. Become a welder in like 9 months and make, $70 or $80 or $90,000 a year. Write something in the box for vocational. Okay, next. Social. Now, maybe you're not I'm very extroverted, so social is one of my favorite things, but some people are more introverted. But we all need some people. We all need people. Relationships is really the greatest correlate to life and wellness. So, if you have a friend, ask him out for dinner. If you don't have a social circle, find a club or start a club, start a reading group, volunteer. There's a lot of places where you can be with people. Set some goals for yourself. Start by filling in one thing you're going to do on each one of these. So that's my last slide. The journey of 1,000 miles begin with one step. So hopefully tonight you're going to walk away knowing a little bit more about what your ACE score is. You're going to know what the ACE study means, what it means to you, and what it means to your community. And hopefully you're going to walk away with a plan, a simple plan for yourself to start tomorrow that'll help you on your journey. So with that, I'm going to wrap up.